They're really promoting this.
Yeah.
Not sure that's a good idea. Here's something. Sports Illustrated has a fascinating profile on Giancarlo Stanton that came out today. The excerpt that got the most attention is this quote from Stanton about his exit from Miami and Derek Jeter, Michael Hill wanting him to go to St. Louis and San Francisco specifically. This is not going to go how you guys think it will go. I'm not going to be forced somewhere on a deadline just because it's convenient for you guys. I've put up with enough here. Derek, I know you don't fully understand where I'm coming from, but Mike does. He's been here. He can fill you in. This may not go exactly how I planned, but it's definitely not going to go how you've planned.
So then it says to the guy, it says, I mean, come on. Yes, that's exactly how it went down.
But what was your reaction to this column?
My reaction to that quote was, come on. Like, I don't believe that was actually said. But I do believe that the spirit of it was conveyed. I think it's too long of a quote for a situation where clearly the perspective of that story is coming from Stanton and his side. Too long of a quote to be plausible. But I do think what's really interesting about it is that Stanton was willing to talk to that writer from SI, Ben Reiter, who's excellent, have that story promoted and have that situation out there, because we had thought that Stanton was probably going to be a pretty vanilla New York athlete, and he's the big megastar coming in, and he was cooperating with this very, very controversial article. And that's great. Hopefully, Anthony, that's an indication of how he's going to be, whether or not that's a real quote.
Right. I mean, this opens up a whole new window to me about this guy as a possible media personality and, and a go-to quote. I mean, that's really revealing, I think, and interesting that he was in that room. He told his agent to stay home and that he was going to go and talk to the Marlins power and see what they said when he presented his own case to him. And, you know, all players should be doing this. When they have power, they should be exercising their power in this system in the way it's currently constructed. And he did that. I thought it was just fascinating. You know, now he has been portrayed as kind of like a guy who might be uncomfortable in New York with the scrutiny. I mean, clearly he has no problem being frank, because I believe all that
Derek
stuff.
Jeter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the most, first of all, I like the power move like that, right? Jeter's coming in, trying to show that he's the boss. You're going to go to these two teams. And he says, well, no, I'm not. I'm going to go here. It's not on your dime. It's on mine. But I liked, or at least I was surprised that Stanton wanted to keep the Marlins together. That was what was more shocking to me. He wanted to be there, basically telling Jeter, give us half the season. Let's keep this thing together. Keep everybody here. And then if it falls apart, then you could start pairing us off. Now, I'm not saying Jeter's got to listen to that, obviously, and he knows that a team like the Marlins cannot win when you have all that money tied up in one player who's not even a pitcher. Bad enough to have that money tied up in one player, but certainly if you're going to do it, it's got to be a top-of-the-end pitcher. But that was surprising to me, so he wanted to stay there. He wanted to stick it out. He wanted to give it another run with his teammates in Miami, and obviously Jeter didn't.
What's interesting there is the article presents him as like a true believer in wanting to win and wanting to be a part of a successful franchise, which certainly isn't the case for every superstar, especially after they've been paid. And I think there was a part in the article that we didn't quote where he said at one point, like, he'd talk to other players and they'd ask him what's going on down there in Miami, and he'd feel embarrassed, and he'd be like, am I the face of this clown show, basically? And I think that's really interesting. It reminds me of interactions that I've had with him when he was on the Marlins. When Dan Jennings, the GM, was moved into the managing position, they came to New York a few days after that, and I asked Stanton, how do you feel about this? And he said a lot with his eyes and with his body language, basically said, I'm not going to be commenting about that. And he made really clear how unhappy he was about that and having to answer questions for it. And good for him that he then engineered a move to the Yankees, who are not as goofy a franchise. It's interesting that he cares.
And by the way, the column goes through a couple of people and players that could have gotten in the way of this whole thing. Shohei Ohtani, who obviously went elsewhere. He went to the Angels. And also this idea that Aaron Judge is a power-hitting right fielder, just like Giancarlo Stanton, and Brian Cashman reached out to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Doug, to me, that was a phone call where Brian Cashman knew exactly what the answer was going to be on the other side, that Aaron Judge was going to say, go get him, let's go, rah, rah, rah. He was never going to say, you know, wait a minute, Cash, what about me? 52 homers, come on, I had a big year, I play right field, he plays right field. That was never going to go that way. This is a nifty little nugget for the breakdown of how Stanton got to the Yankees. And it certainly casts Judge in a nice light. But I don't think Cashman would have asked the question, or at least made it public that he did ask the question, if the answer
It's a nice storyline, though.
Yeah.
Well, and
I love it as a storyline.
Right, what's he supposed to say?
Exactly.
I mean, what is he supposed to say? You know what? I think it's a bad idea.
I've earned.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, then what's that say about him? I think as a GM, you have to know better. And I get the appeal of bringing a guy like Giancarlo Stanton to your team, regardless of where you are. But I also don't think this was the best baseball move that the Yankees could have made. He basically fell into their lap. you kind of have to take him on. I don't think it was the best baseball move.
I can't complain. No complaints about this move.
No, I don't
honestly.
either. But give Brian Cashman credit, because before Shohei Ohtani made his decision, he was at the owners' meetings or the GM meetings. I can't remember which one it was. Basically talking to the Marlins, saying, "I don't know if we're going to be players, but if Ohtani doesn't sign with us, we will be." And then they connected. It was
an open mind about everything.
Cashman is in on every player until he's not, which I think is the right strategy to have.